Hi, welcome to Loft 801. My name is Diego, and today I'm talking about Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, the sequel to one of the most fun, bloody, witty, and crowd-pleasing horror thrillers of the last several years. And I'm gonna be honest, right out of the gate, this movie is nowhere near as fun as the original Ready or Not. Now, with that said, I still had a good time with it. I still think it's entertaining, and it has a fun, bloody finale, so I'd probably give it around a 7 out of 10. But this is one of those sequels where you can tell that the first film was just lightning in a bottle. The original had this really sharp, contained, darkly funny concept that felt completely on its own, and the sequel feels like it's trying to do two things at the same time. It wants to repeat the same formula that made the first movie work, but it also wants to expand the world and mythology in a much bigger way. And for me, that expansion is where this movie really starts to lose some of its magic. FYI, this review will contain some minor spoilers, sorry, not sorry. So, this movie picks up literally seconds after the first film. Grace Ladomas Macaulay, after surviving that insane night at the Ladomas Manor, wakes up in a hospital handcuffed to a bed because the police can't figure out what happened, and naturally she looks suspicious as the only survivor. From there, her estranged younger sister Faith shows up, and before long, the two of them get pulled into another nightmare involving a new wealthy family, a much bigger conspiracy, and this idea that Grace surviving the original game has now made her the target of other powerful families around the world. And that's where I think the movie immediately starts to feel a little forced. Technically, yes, it flows naturally from a timeline standpoint because it starts literally seconds after the first movie, but emotionally and narratively, it just doesn't feel natural. The first movie had such a clean, self-contained concept. A bride joins one cursed family, has to survive one horrifying night, and that's it. This sequel turns that into, actually, there's a whole worldwide network of rich Satanist families, and now all of them want Grace. And that escalation just doesn't feel nearly as cohesive. It feels bigger, sure, but not better. It feels more complicated, but not more effective. And a lot of the first half, especially the intro, feels like it's bending backwards just so it can pull Grace back into the same situation. It comes across a little cheesy, a little unnatural, and obviously a little too engineered. That's really the core problem with this movie for me. It's trying so hard to be another Ready or Not, but it never feels as fresh, as sharp, or as organically chaotic as the first one. I know I'm repeating myself here, but the original worked because it was simple, mean, funny, and tightly controlled. It had a very specific tone. It had one family, one manor, one game, one final girl, and a very clean escalation. This sequel takes that tight concept and broadens it into something way more sprawling, and in doing that, it loses some of the flow and cohesiveness that made the first film so special. And that's not to say that a sequel can't be better than the original, because plenty of them are. Dune Part 2 is better than Dune 1. Shrek 2 is better than Shrek 1. There are definitely sequels that build on a great foundation and become even stronger. So, I didn't go into this movie automatically thinking, well, of course it's gonna be worse. I went in hoping they would find a new cool angle, but unfortunately, this really does feel like a sequel that exists only because the first movie was so successful and not because the story naturally demanded a second chapter. That core complaint aside, let's talk about the biggest strength in this movie, Samara Weaving. She is still fantastic. She still completely understands Grace. She sells the trauma, the fear, the frustration, the rage, and the survival instinct that made her such a great final girl in the first place. What I love about her performance here is that she doesn't play Grace like some untouchable action hero now that she survived once. She still feels human. She still feels rattled. She still feels angry that she has to go through another horrible, absurd night of rich psychopaths trying to kill her. Samara Weaving has that kind of on-screen presence where every time she's in a scene, she is exactly who I want to follow. She feels grounded even when the movie itself gets sillier or more forced. She is the glue that is holding a lot of this movie together. Honestly, I kind of feel like because of Samara Weaving, this movie is a 10 out of 10 experience with every scene that she's in. She gives the movie energy, credibility, and tension, and without her, this entire movie would completely fall apart. Now, let's talk about the biggest weakness in this movie for me, Kathryn Newton as Faith. And this is unfortunate because I actually like Kathryn as an actress. I liked her a ton in Abigail. I liked her in Lisa Frankenstein. I think she's really good at playing a smug, sassy, sarcastic, charismatic character. She has a fun screen presence when that's the role and that's what the movie needs. But in this movie, that energy feels completely wrong. Faith is supposed to be Grace's estranged sister. This is a role that requires fear, pain, unresolved emotional history, believable tension, and eventually some sense of reconnection. But Kathryn Newton plays Faith with this smug swagger so much throughout the movie that she completely feels out of place. She never really feels genuinely horrified by what's happening. She never feels truly shaken in the way Samara Weaving does. And because of that, the emotional core between the sisters never really lands. That's the real issue. It's not that she's playing a different kind of energy because she rocks her smugness, it's that the movie needed more emotional writing. To put it simply, Samara Weaving feels like she belongs in this universe, while Kathryn Newton feels like she wandered in from a Marvel movie. As for the new villains and broader ensemble, I am kind of mixed. I did like Elijah Wood as the lawyer. He's really good at playing these strange, slippery, socially offbeat characters, so he brings a fun energy to the movie. He felt like he fully understood the heightened weirdness of this world. I also liked seanhatosy as Titus Danforth and Sarah Michelle Gellar as Ursula Danforth, at least in terms of presence. They're both interesting performers, but I don't think this movie used them as well as it could have. The Danforth setup is one of those things that just feels a little forced. I'm getting into major spoiler territory here, I'm sorry. Titus is a perfect example. For most of the movie, he's treated kind of like a loser. Everybody talks down to him, pushes him around, and underestimates him. And then the movie suddenly wants him to become this terrifying, rage-fueled villain. And that turn doesn't feel earned. It feels like the script changed its mind halfway through the movie. There's a cool villain somewhere in there, but the movie just doesn't properly build him up. And on the other hand, Ursula is positioned like she's going to be a major force in this movie, and then ultimately the movie shifts in a different direction. I found that a little frustrating. Additionally, a lot of the extended cast didn't leave as much of an impression on me, which is a big reason for why this movie doesn't feel as cohesive as the original. The first movie had a very specific family dynamic. Even when characters were ridiculous, they all felt like they belonged together. Here, because the movie expands the mythology into a larger network of wealthy families, the cast ends up feeling more scattered, more random, more like people being added to make the world look bigger instead of characters who naturally fit in the story. There were a few standouts for me though. I liked Maya J as Francesca El Cairo. She felt like she fit in this world more naturally than some of the others. She perfectly captured the energy of the Ladoma screw-ups from the first film. But overall, a lot of these new players just didn't really click for me. Some of them barely register, and some of them just feel misaligned with the tone. I do want to give this movie credit where credit is due. The finale is a lot of fun. Once things fully unravel and the movie commits to the bloody mess of it all, I had a much better time. That's where the energy picks up. Once things fully unravel in the second half and the movie commits to the bloody mess of it all, I had a much better time. That's where the energy picks up, and that's where Grace feels most like the Grace I wanted to see, and that's where the movie finally starts delivering on the kind of vicious crowd-pleasing chaos that I wanted more of throughout. I really liked the direction that the climax took, and I thought the ending was strong. It doesn't erase the issues I had with the first half or with the casting, but it does help the movie end on a strong note. I'm sorry to rant, but one thought that I had while watching this movie is that with a different cast, this sequel could have worked so much better. I would have died of happiness if someone like Margot Robbie had been cast as Grace's sister instead. Part of that is physical believability. Margot Robbie and Samara Weaving genuinely look like they could be sisters. But more importantly, Margot Robbie can sell fear, pain, anger, chaos, vulnerability in a way that would have made the sister dynamic more believable. I think she could have matched Samara Weaving's intensity and helped make the emotional side of the story feel real. Because that's really what's missing. This movie doesn't just have a weak co-lead, it has a co-lead who throws off the emotional balance of the story. And that's kind of why I keep coming back to this idea that Samara Weaving is carrying this movie so hard that it's a 7 out of 10, even though there are moments where this movie feels like a 5 out of 10. The final things I want to talk about are the setting and music. Firstly, I do think the setting is still fun, I just don't think it's nearly as fun as the original. The first movie had that really tight, gothic, wealthy family estate feel, and because everything was happening inside that mansion and around the property, it made the whole movie feel more cohesive, more intimate, and honestly more memorable. That manor almost felt like a character in the movie. This sequel goes in a different direction. The setting here feels much more like a golf course, hotel resort, or some kind of giant luxury retreat, and because of that, it's a lot more expansive. There's more space, more areas, and more room for movement, but it doesn't feel like it's used as well. While the movie does feel bigger, that's not necessarily a good thing. A lot of the original atmosphere is unfortunately lost. On the other hand, I genuinely enjoyed the music. I think the music is still great, and even though I don't think the movie reaches the same heights as the first one overall, the score and musical choices still do a really good job of keeping that stylish, darkly playful, upscale, chaotic energy that this franchise needs. The music does a lot of heavy lifting in maintaining atmosphere and identity, so I really appreciated it. At the end of the day, Ready or Not 2 Here I Come is still a fun movie. I enjoyed it, I wasn't bored, and I liked the finale. I liked Samara weaving a lot, and I thought there were pieces here that worked. But it absolutely feels like a sequel that was not organically planned. It feels like the directors made a fantastic one-and-done movie and then later had to come back and figure out how to expand something that maybe didn't really need expanding. The result is a sequel that is entertaining, but much less sharp, much less cohesive, and much less natural than the original. The bigger mythology doesn't help it. The faith storyline doesn't really work for me, and Kathryn Newton feels badly miscast. And while there are some fun performances sprinkled throughout, none of it comes together the way the first movie did. Still, Samara weaving is so good, the music is great, the setting is still fun, albeit less memorable than the original estate, and the finale is bloody enough and entertaining enough that I had a solid time. Unless you're a die-hard Samara weaving fan, I don't think this movie is worth watching in theaters, but it's certainly worth streaming in a few weeks. This is a chaotically fun movie. Thank you for listening to my review of Ready or Not 2 Here I Come. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and hit subscribe. If you did not enjoy the video, I'm sending Mr. LaBelle after you. As always, I would love to read what you have to say, so leave a comment and let me know what you're thinking. Also, if there's something you want to see reviewed, don't forget to let me know and I will do my best to get to it. Lastly, if you want to see some more from me, then you can check out my vlogs linked up above or my podcast, Good Friends. Again, thank you for watching. My name is Diego, and I will see you next time.